I saw Zootopia 2 last week, and I really wanted to talk about it because I remember doing like a Disney revival tier list back in 2021, and I'm pretty sure I put Zootopia in my top 2, and I kind of stand by that. Wreck-It Ralph is my favorite of those movies, but it's kind of in there amongst like Frozen and Tangled. And I thought Zootopia 2 was a pretty good follow-up to it, and I have some thoughts. As a sequel, you're always going to be compared to your predecessor. Can you live up to it? Can you improve upon it? And I don't think Zootopia 2 does that, but I also think it would have been very hard to achieve that because Zootopia is a movie that really just exists in the time. It's like the epitome of what Disney were making at the time. In this like Disney 3D animation revival era, they really had like a formula that they were using and putting to use, and I think Zootopia ticks all the boxes most emphatically from that era. It's not my favorite movie from the era, but if we're like taking the formula of the movies they were making at that era, I think like Zootopia is like the most Disney revival era movie. Does that make sense? So to start, I just want to talk about like Zootopia and how I think it is like the perfect Disney revival era movie before I get on to Zootopia 2, because I think it's a real movie from its time. I feel like there's a few tropes from Disney revival eras that ended up getting a bit overdone, but you know, you have like the plucky young girl protagonist that dreams big and wants to show the world what she can do. And I think Judy is a genuinely really likable character. And like the original draft of Zootopia had Nick as the main character, and it just didn't work at all. He had like a shock collar on him, and it's genuinely crazy if you actually read like the original draft. And making Judy the main character is what makes this movie work. Like Judy is genuinely a fantastic character. You know, if you're thinking of the classic Disney heroine by the book, you know, you're thinking of the Belles, the Cinderellas, the Snow Whites, and they're just kind of like these flawless, perfect characters that don't do wrong. Like Judy is a flawed character, which in my opinion makes her more relatable and more easy to root for. And I just think Judy is a great character. And that's like tick 1 from the Disney revival era of like a plucky female lead that wants to prove the world wrong, but is also like a flawed character. And I think this movie does that as well as any other movie from the era. Then it has the twist villain. Again, pretty much every movie in the Disney revival era seemed to go down the route of doing a twist villain, a character that introduces themselves at the start of the movie, and unbeknownst to you, they're the twist villain this whole time, and they've been pulling the strings behind it. And in this movie, it's that like sheep mayor, I've forgotten her name, Clearweather. People started to really get sick of Disney's twist villains because it just became so predictable that they were going to do a twist villain. They basically did one in every movie, and you know, some of them did just become rather obvious. And Zootopia is kind of on the end of this, so at this point you're kind of expecting the twist villain in this movie. And I think this character does very much go under the noses of you. You don't really expect anything from her because she doesn't seem like an important character, and then she kind of comes to play in the end. You're like, oh my god, the unbeknownst sheep lady that was kind of not important was the villain. I think it's a more effective villain than some of the ones that came a few years prior, like Big Hero 6, where it's that Calhoun guy, or Hans in Frozen. I think they're more obviously like, oh yeah, this is obviously the bad guy, which ticks another. This is my list for the perfect Disney revival era movie, and Zootopia ticks the boxes. On top of this, I think another big trope of these movies is like having this big world that you're introduced to. It's almost like that money shot in these movies where like the character is like seeing this big new world and city. You know, you definitely have this in Wreck-It Ralph where they're entering Grand Central Station. There's the scenes from San Francisco and Big Hero 6 where you're like getting a whole view of the whole city. And again, Zootopia does this as effectively as any other movie from the revival era, in my opinion, introducing us to Zootopia right from the start. Just this city where you can be anything, and you got the original Shakira song. Couldn't have asked a better person to make the track for it, and it's just like a wonderful moment. It's the scene that will always stick with me from Zootopia as like the introduction to the city. And honestly, kind of like having an on-the-nose cameo where like this gazelle character is Shakira in this movie, and everyone watching it knows this is Shakira, is kind of like another trope of this era, I feel, in my opinion. You know, yeah, it's like Maui is obviously the Rock in Moana, and you kind of like Sonic showing up in Wreck-It Ralph, Stan Lee shows up bigger. I feel like having that cameo, it isn't something they used to do before Disney, is another trope of this era. I'm kind of maybe reaching at straws for these tropes now, but you know, my point was that this is the most classic Disney revival era movie. If you wanted to pick a movie to just show someone what the Disney revival era was about, Zootopia is the movie I'm putting forward. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. Which then brings us to Zootopia 2. How do you follow up something which I basically said by definition is a modern classic 10 years on, when that era is very much aged and like people are tired of those kind of movies? And there are going to be spoilers from here. I'm sorry. If you've enjoyed this video and you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, then this is, I guess, where it expires for you. So to start, the movie does go down the slightly obvious route that Nick and Judy are still seen as like these inexperienced amateurs that need to learn from the more experienced police officers at the force. And despite how the last movie ended with it seeming like it wasn't going to be that way, it's pretty much the same opening dynamic as the last movie, where, you know, they've got to prove everyone wrong, and they get ostracized from the police force, and they have to go out on their mission alone because no one believes in them. And maybe that was just them trying to be, like, realistic and trying to have, like, some sort of antagonist, but I think the movie would have been more interesting to me if we actually had the cops working together, with Nick and Judy being the lead cops, to try and work out what's going on. And the Lynxes being evil wasn't just like this inside job, once again, where like everyone knows about it and everyone's in on it. But I thought maybe we'd get like Chief Bogo having a bigger part, and like really being involved with a case. But he was working against them and then got hospitalized. So it was just out of action. I don't know if Idris Elba was just too busy playing Knuckles or something to be involved in this. And you know, they were introducing the characters of the other police officers, and I thought at the start of the movie when they first introduced them, like, oh, maybe we're gonna like get some of these characters fleshed out, and we didn't really get anything other than two of the Zebros revealing their names. That's like the only thing I took from this movie. I don't know the names of any of the other police officer characters still. I just think that would have been better, in my opinion, if we actually had all the cops working together as a unit and not getting split up. Like, again, Nick and Judy get split up in this movie. You know, they're having to do all this stuff on their own, and it's like, oh, if only they knew the pieces that the other one knew, and you're kind of like, ugh! And maybe that's going to be like a hope for Zootopia 3, it's probably coming soon, that is going to be like, maybe they'll actually just like have a movie where everyone's working together in this one to deal with one crisis. What I was very impressed by from the movie was the world building. I don't think I realized quite how in-depth the Zootopia world is. Like, I thought the whole lore behind the world and having these different weather societies was very much just there to be in that opening scene from the first movie, where like Judy's like looking upon it like anyone could be anything in this place. Like, the weather doesn't even obey the rules of science. And this movie actually revolves around like the creation of that weather device, which I think is like a really fascinating like deep dive into something that is very much established in place in the first movie, which is a really effective way to make a sequel. Admittedly, I think it was too obvious that the snake wasn't going to be the villain in this movie. Like, I literally said as soon as the lynx came up on screen, that guy's gonna be the main villain. It's too obvious now. I'm predicting that the lynx is gonna be the villain. To be fair to them, when Paulbert and the snake started working together, I was like, oh, maybe he isn't the villain then. He's actually the good, but the rest of them are gonna be evil. And they did kind of trick me like, oh no, he's just like the black sheep of his family and he's actually gonna help the good guy. And they kind of convinced me he wasn't going to be, and like so lent into the fact he wasn't, that I was like, oh, actually. And then it did kind of catch me off guard when he backstabbed everyone. But it's never a good sign when the twist villain first shows up on screen as a good guy, and my first thought is, yeah, he's gonna be the bad guy, is it? It just isn't. But to return to the point, I think the world building is really interesting. In the first movie, we only got introduced to mammals. We didn't meet anyone that wasn't a mammal, and then suddenly there's a reptile, there's a snake. We're seeing snakes shedding skin in the city, and it's like, oh yeah, like, why aren't there any reptiles here? And then we find out like they're like outcasts of society. And it's just a really good job of continuing on the themes of the first movie to do with prejudice and racism and discrimination, but covered up by all the fluffy animal characters that look cute, and you don't think about the themes, what they're actually meaning. You're just like watching and taking in the movie of good versus bad, not realizing that bad is literally racism and good is literally not being racist. And I think it would have been really easy not to continue on the messaging of like prejudice and discrimination in this movie, because, you know, they solved it, right? They fixed it. And no, this movie just goes at it from a different angle. This time we're learning about these like species of creatures that they've completely ostracized and like kicked out. They're not even allowed to live there anymore. It's a movie about colonization this time. And the moment at the end where the snake like goes back to its old family home and town is like a genuinely beautiful moment about like reclaiming land, and it's like emotional and heartwarming. It's like a genuinely beautiful moment that like I almost wasn't seeing coming from this kind of movie. And this movie has very obviously set up potential for a sequel. We're gonna get a Zootopia 3 probably sooner than we got Zootopia 2. It's been a very successful movie. The first movie was very successful. We're going to be getting more of them. And the next one, I assume, is going very much down the theme of immigration. Like, we've got birds arriving at Zootopia now. That's how the movie ends. The end credits scene, Judy's like staring out onto the city and a bird's feather falls onto her window. So I tried to recreate that. I hope that looked good. And so that gives me like a lot of hope that like, okay, they're going to continue very much on this storyline. And I also just find it to be like a really funny thing, because it feels like Disney have just tried to like recreate Avatar which they already own as like an animated movie. Like they made their first one to do with mammals, then they're doing reptiles, they're gonna do birds. You know, in my opinion, it just parallels Avatar. They made the water movie, the fire movie, and they're gonna do the air and earth movie. And it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, we had one good idea and we're just gonna like now find a way to branch it out as many times as possible so we can make as many movies out of this as possible. Disney didn't used to do sequels like this, by the way. I'm going on a tangent again, but Disney, before like 2018, had one theatrically released sequel ever. Now they've got like all sequels coming out. Zootopia 2, Zootopia 3, Moana 2, Frozen 3. This is Disney's run of movies right now. And I'm pretty deep in like Disney lore and everything. I genuinely couldn't tell you what the name of the next Disney original movie is. It's a tiring point to just keep making them drilling home all the time, but it's just more interesting when you make a new original movie. I know maybe less people are going to watch them, but they are more interesting, and you aren't going to be able to keep drilling out sequels to these movies forever. We want to see new stuff. So I know this was better than some of their originals recently, but I still would rather you take a chance with an original. I will be watching Zootopia 3 when it comes out. I'm interested in it. I didn't think this movie was as good as the first one, but it was still a good movie, and I think it's probably the best movie Disney have made in a few years, because it's been rough out here for a while. So I guess to try and tie my points together, and basically what I've been trying to say for this video, is that this movie, it still feels very much like a Disney revival movie. It isn't completely tiresome in the way some of the movies towards the end of the revival era are becoming, where they're just like, yeah, you are doing the same plot over and over again. And I think that I don't even know if the movies that did that are in the revival era. Maybe like the likes of Wish and Strange World are on this whole new era. I don't know what that new era is. Has that been named yet? Does anyone actually know? I'd love to be filled in with that. I haven't been keeping up with this. And it's not to say it doesn't try anything different or do some new things, but it very much feels like a movie from the time. And I think that's why maybe it wasn't effective enough for me to think it was better than the original, or really to be like a tone-setting movie for a new era. Because that's what I was hoping. Maybe this movie had the potential to be like the movie that was going to set the tone for the next era of Disney movies. And like, this is going to be the new meta that we're going to be sick of in 10 years' time. We still feel like, again, I don't know what the name of this new era is, but it feels like a very purgatory-esque era, where like we're kind of at the end of the revival. Some are still kind of doing the same thing as the revival. It's not really working as well anymore. Don't really know what direction we're going with these, and we're waiting for like just the next real big hit to lead us in the new direction. Don't know when that's coming. It'll probably be an original as well, because I don't think these sequels are... I think the next one that they come out with, I have faith in it. Whatever it is, that's going to be the movie that marks the start of a new era that we're going to have to think of a whole new name for. Like, we've done Renaissance, we've done Revival. Like, what else is there? Like, how many more descriptive terms for, like, a rebirth can you do? I guess the rebirth would be the next one. I'm coining this now. The next era of Disney's success is going to be called the rebirth era. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Zootopia 2, what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below, and like and subscribe and hype this video. And yeah, I guess I'll see you next time. I don't even know if this hyping thing makes a difference.